Hello everyone and welcome back to another kart ranking tier list. Today we're going to be looking at the final entry in the Sonic Riders trilogy, Sonic Free Riders. We've been taking a look at the entirety of the Sonic Racing catalog, and today marks the ending to the Sonic Riders arc we've been doing. We've already did the first Sonic Riders, followed by Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. Today we're going to be doing Sonic Free Riders, and then up next will be Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Now, I had some experience with Sonic Riders, and less experience with Zero Gravity, and pretty much no experience with Free Riders. As a lot of you know, this was a Kinect-only game requiring the Kinect. I think there's mods out there now that make it so you don't have to use the Kinect, but what I'm getting at is I was kind of familiar with the boards from Riders and a little familiar with the Zero Gravity ones, albeit very slightly. With these guys, these are like super new to me. But as always, we're going to be ranking these Extreme Gear based solely on vibes, just how dope of a design I think they are, how cool they look, and we're going to be starting off with the Flame Lance. This one's pretty cool. I don't know who this would belong to, if it's like a character-specific board, but I like the color, I like the shape, it kind of looks like a sword almost. I honestly think this is an A. Up next we have the Fortress, and if you've watched the original Sonic Riders and Zero Gravity reviews I did, I absolutely adore the bikes, and this is no exception. I think this is a really sick looking bike. I think this is another A, honestly. Up next we've got the Gambler, returning from 1 and 2, and you know, honestly, I think this is the best the Gambler has looked. Like, I remember not super caring for the Gambler in 1 and 2, but honestly here, it's better. It's not like exceptional, it's not crazy looking, it's just better, although it is a little boring, so I think it's going to be at the top of C. Up next we have the Hang On, returning from 1 and I think 2. Obviously, much like the last times, adored this thing, being the arcade peripheral for Hang On. Yeah, not too much else to say about it, definitely an S. Up next we have the Hardboiled, and you know, I remember the name from the previous games, but the bike design itself is kind of making me draw a blank. Either way, it's pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of like 80s anime law enforcement kind of bikes. I think it's pretty solid. I think it's going to be a B. Up next, we have the High Booster, and this thing's pretty cool. I don't know, again, if this is a character-specific board. It kind of looks like it'd be like maybe Knuckles or something. It's okay. I do think it's a little on the generic side, although I will say I do like that the boards in this game are a lot thinner compared to the Zero Gravity ones, but either way, I do think it is another C. Up next, we have the Legend, returning from 1 and 2, and you know, I kind of think Zero Gravity, I think they got the Legend board right. Like, 1 had some flaws I didn't care for, 2, I thought they perfected it, and this one, I don't know, it kind of feels like they've stripped the identity of the Legend board. And one of my biggest complaints was in the first one, how it had like light blue strips at the end, and now this one's got like light green strips at the end. I don't know, not super huge fan, I'm gonna say C. Up next, we've got the Metal Star. I don't know if Metal Sonic was in the original games. I'm guessing this is his board, and it's okay. A little boring, a little on the generic side. I don't super love it. I think it's gonna be a C. All right, up next, we've got the Omni Tempest. And again, I remember this name from, I think it was Zero Gravity. And if it's the board I'm thinking of from Zero Gravity, it was very circular and weird. Like, it had like these spheres on the back end of it. Actually, I can just check. I'm in the same file. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah, this was the one I was thinking of. Okay, it's got a complete design overhaul, and honestly, I definitely like this guy better. Although this guy, weirdly, kind of reminds me of the bottom of like a sneaker, but I definitely think it's pretty interesting. I think I'm gonna give him an A. Up next, we've got the Pink Rose, gonna guess is Amy's, and it's okay. I do like the boards that have kind of like the flared out back end. I think the color palette's nice. I think the overall silhouette's okay. Nothing too special, but I do like it. I think it's gonna be a B. Up next, we've got the Potential, and I'm sorry, this thing just really makes me think of like an Axe body spray deodorant stick. Like the way it looks, the color scheme. I don't hate it, but I can't really unsee that. I think realistically though, I think it's gonna be a low B. Up next, we've got the Professional. And you know, the board shape is okay, the like color scheme's okay. I just think the inner part's just kind of busy. Like, there's just a lot going on here, and at first I didn't even notice this like what looks like a hole in the center. I'm not too crazy about this guy. I think he's gonna be our first F. Up next, we have the Psychic Wave, and this guy's pretty cool. Makes me think of some kind of like Mystic Stone slab or something. I don't know if that's what they were going for. Just another kind of grayscale color scheme. Overall silhouette's okay. Again, just a little on the boring side. I think he's gonna be another C. Up next, we've got the Red Rock. Gonna guess this one is Knuckles, given the name. And I think this is a pretty sick looking board. Admittedly, I can't really tell because of the background if this board is like that like red transparent material you'd see in like early 2000s consoles and stuff. Either way, I think it's a cool design. I like the, again, flared out pointy back end. I think this is gonna be a high B. Up next, we've got the Reserve Tank, and I remember this one from I think it was Zero Gravity, because I remember the exhaust pipes. I'm pretty sure I gave this guy somewhat of a high score, because I do like the design. I don't think in the original his exhausts were green. I think they were like orange or something. Brings it down a little bit for me, but not too much. I think it's still an A. Up next we have the Smile, gonna guess this is Cream's, and I really dig this one. I think these little back parts are maybe a little too far down. That could just be a perspective thing, like maybe they're the exact same as these guys. Either way, it's just kind of okay. Nothing too exciting. I think it's gonna be another high C. You know what, actually compared to the others, I think it's gonna be a lower C, and I'm actually gonna switch these two. All right, up next we've got the Steel, and I like this thing. It's pretty different. It really makes me think of like a board that like Bowser would have or something. Cool board overall. I think it's gonna be another B. Up next we've got the Super Hang-On, returning from I believe the first game, and much like with the regular Hang-On, again, absolutely adore it. I made this comparison in the first one, but it's definitely like the arcade cabinet that Rio got in All-Stars Transformed Racing. So I like it. It's quirky, it's fun, it's cool design. Another S. Up next we've got the Temptation. Gonna guess Rouge's board. And you know, out of all of the boards Rouge has had, I think this is actually the best. It's a little simple. I remember the first two, like, just not really vibing with them, but I think this one's okay. Again, I kind of wish this little pattern back here was also a heart. I don't get why it's a heart here, but then it just goes into a circle. Either way, not bad. Honestly, might be just because it's Rouge, but I'm gonna give it a low A. Up next, we've got the Crazy, returning from the prior games. Much like with the original tier list, if you've seen them, you know it's pretty much tradition at this point that the Crazy Taxi will pretty much always be an S. Like, it is just such a perfect design. I will say though, it's still an S. I do think that the Zero Gravity one was better. Like, the first Riders was good, Zero Gravity was perfect, like perfect, and this one's just kind of okay. Still, it's always great to see the Crazy Taxi return. Up next we've got the Turbo Star, and this guy's pretty cool. Kind of a trend I'm noticing with all the boards in this game is that they're a little on the generic side. Like, Riders and Zero Gravity definitely had some crazy out there boards and extreme gear overall, but the ones in this game are just pretty simple. Honestly, kind of just no real opinion. I think it's fine looking. I'm gonna give it a mid C. Up next we have the Type J, gonna guess Jet's board, and you know, this is an upgrade from Zero Gravity. I remember Riders I still think has the best one, and then Zero Gravity's was just kind of messy. This just looks like a better Zero Gravity's version. I like the little jet exhaust things here on the end, the flared out end, color scheme's cool. Yeah, this is a good board. I think this is another A. Up next, the Type S for Storm. Yeah, this is such a glow up from Zero Gravity. I don't remember what his board was in the first game. I remember Zero Gravity I did not like. I actually really dig this guy. Funny enough, it just kind of looks like Jets, but just better. I actually think he's gonna get an S. This is a really cool looking board. All right, up next we've got the Type W for Wave. And you know, I don't fully remember if her boards in Riders and Zero Gravity had this back end piece. I remember this back end piece, funny enough, from Racing Crossworlds, because that's what her board looks like. Either way, I think it's cool. It's funny how these like back end pieces can really make or break a board for me, because overall, like, realistically, this is a very generic, kind of boring looking shape. This back end just really brings it home for me. I think realistically it's an A. That back end is definitely doing a lot. All right, up next we've got the Wanted, and if I remember right, I think in Zero Gravity, I think Wanted was like a pair of skates. So complete overhaul here, but they kept the color scheme, and this is okay. I think this is gonna be another mid C. You know, actually compared with the others, I think it's gonna go towards the end. All right, up next we've got the Yellowtail, gonna be Tails' board, and this is okay. Tails historically has had some kind of whatever boards. Like, I remember his first one was super boring, and then I remember Zero Gravity was like kind of odd, but it was fine. I think this guy's okay. I'm sorry to say, but man, just a lot of the boards in this game are just super generic. And you know, it's ironic because like I remember saying how much in Zero Gravity I actually prefer like the simpler boards, but I think it was because it was in contrast with like some of the weirder stuff that was there. When you have a game like this where all of the boards, not all, but like a good chunk of the boards are pretty generic, they really just start kind of meshing all together. Up next, we've got the Angel Devil. Again, another, at least in name, returning from Zero Gravity. In Zero Gravity, it was like this dual jet exhaust hover bike thing. In here, it just looks like a regular dirt bike. I know I love the bikes, but I mean, like, man, even this one's generic. Maybe it's just because of all the other boards, but I will say, like, at least it's something different. I think this is gonna be a mid B. Up next, we've got the Auto Slider, another very odd looking bike. Honestly, it's not bad, it's just kind of weird in a couple different regards. Like, the whole windshield slash glass piece just coming all the way down is a little weird. Also, the color scheme is kind of odd. Like, I don't know how much I super agree with this like desaturated grass green. Yeah, the more I look at this, the more I'm just not a fan of it, honestly. Again, I know I love the bikes, but like honestly, I think this is the first bike that's gonna get an F. I just don't care for this guy. I will say at least he's not like cluttered. Up next we have the Avatar F. You know, this board's really cool. I actually really dig this. I low-key wish it had like Rouge's color scheme, because I think this would be a great Rouge board. But overall, I actually really dig this board. I think it's gonna get an S. I like it a lot. Up next, we have the Avatar M. A little weird, but you know what? Kinda like it. I don't super love the color scheme, the green and blue. I think the bug eyes, like headlight things, are kind of cool. I'm gonna give it a low A. I think it's all right. Up next, we've got the Beginner. I remember this guy from, I think it was Zero Gravity. He was either in Riders or Zero Gravity. And from what I remember, his design was kind of similar. Like it had this like, in one of the older ones, it had like a yellow pointed decal. This guy's cool. I don't remember what I gave the older Beginners, but honestly, I think this is a pretty solid looking board. I like the silhouette, I like the shape, I like the little lights on the end here. I think I'm gonna give him an S. Like, I really dig this. I wish the color scheme was a little different, but overall, I actually really like this board. Up next, we have the Black Shot, returning from, I believe it was Zero Gravity. And this guy's cool. I can't remember what I gave the original Black Shot, but this guy's not bad. I think the design, the silhouette's pretty cool. I think the decals on the inner part's a bit much, but overall, I think it's a pretty solid looking board. I actually really like this board. I think it's gonna be another A. Up next, we've got the Blue Star, gonna guess is Sonic's. And you know, I think this is like a really good example of a board that's like a good mixture of solid but also cool. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, the design is nice, decals and colors cool. Like, this is a really good looking board. I think I'm gonna give him a low S. All right, and we're on to the final four. The next one is the E-Gear, and this thing is absolutely crazy looking. Really reminds me of like Master Chief. Yeah, this is a very crazy looking board. Ironically, whatever I said about some of these boards being generic, I think this is like too much but in the opposite direction. There's just so much junk on here. I honestly really don't know what to think about this board. I kind of just think it's weird. I'm gonna give it a high F. Up next, we've got the E-Rider. I believe this was in either the original or Zero Gravity. And honestly, this is a really sick looking bike. Like, it just looks like this guy, but even better. Great bike overall. This is an easy S. Up next, we've got Explosion, and I love this board. It looks like it came straight out of like Wipeout. Overall shape is cool, the color's nice, the little bits and pieces on here are all pretty consistent. I think this is another S, honestly. And the last board being the Fastest. Again, at least in name, returning from the original games, because original Riders and Zero Gravity both had boards called Faster and Fastest, and in this game they just have Fastest. And it kind of went through like a bit of a design change. They made it more streamlined. Overall, I think it's cool. I think its past iterations were a little better. I think I'm gonna give him a C. And you know what? One final change I want to make, I'm gonna switch the Gambler with the Wanted. All right, I think that's gonna do it. I've done a few of these tier lists now, so I could be misremembering, but I think this is the first time a tier list where like I've had mostly C's, which like these boards aren't bad. Like, I don't hate them or anything. They're just so boring looking, especially with all the boards that came before in Riders and Zero Gravity. It is nice to see some of the returning ones, like Hang On, Crazy, E-Rider, and some of the new boards too are really good, like Explosion. And they managed to make some boards even better than the originals, like Beginner or Gambler. But overall, man, like, a lot of these boards are just kind of whatever. And maybe that's fitting for the game that it came from, but I do think that's going to do it, and that's going to end our Sonic Riders arc/trilogy in our overall Sonic Racing catalog. Now we've only got one more game, being Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. And I remember I'd gotten a comment in one of my previous videos, like asking how I was going to tackle the DLC for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. And since all of these tier lists are saved, as you saw earlier, whatever the ending result will be for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, we'll actually have that tier list, saved here. So I can just add to it in the future, like, in a year from it when more DLC is available. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below what you agreed with, what you maybe didn't agree with, what your personal S ranks are. But I'll be back with some more ranking videos, some more modeling videos and whatnot. Thank you guys as always for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again in the next video.